welcome to the hospitality industry panel for this afternoon. I'd like to introduce Andy Eames from Starward Distillery and Michael Busquetta from Worksmiths and Cameron Ma from McConnell's Restaurants. And I'd just like to kick off by getting everybody's insights into what brought you to hospitality industry, and start with you, Andy.
I was doing it through high school and really enjoyed working, because back then you could work probably in bars and restaurants underage in certain areas. Really enjoyed it, and as I went through university I kept doing it and really enjoyed it. And when I finished university I was actually doing political science. I decided that I'd rather work with people and food and culture rather than, I don't know, try and apply for a position as a PM. I think there's something more pure about what we do and with bringing joy. So yeah, that's kind of how I did it. And then I've travelled the world for 10 years, and I came home about 15 years ago, and I've just had a really enjoying, fulfilling career for the last 25 years.
So Andy, can you just give us a little insight into what you do at Starward in terms of the hospitality role?
So at present, I look after the events portfolio for Starward. I look after sort of education, media, trade tours. So if you work for the New York Times, you'll come in and you'll see me, and I'll walk you around the building and take you out for dinner, and that's wonderful. Or if you just come in from off the street and you want to learn about the product, it's my team or myself that sort of take you through the whole process. We do tastings, and then we just have a bar area. We look after functions. So pretty much the whole gamut, apart from we even do food. So pretty much the whole gamut, apart from probably accommodation. So I look across all spectrums, and VIP care is a large part of what we do.
Oh, fabulous. And for you, Michael, what's brought you to Worksmiths? And you might want to just give a little bit of an explanation of what Worksmiths do.
Yeah, absolutely. So Worksmiths is a community hub for the food, beverage and hospitality industry. Here in Melbourne, we've got 2 spaces that provide co-working as well as specialised equipment and spaces for people to work in hospitality. We also run our own projects, so things like Melbourne Cocktail Festival that we ran earlier this year. It's all about building the hospitality community. In terms of starting in hospitality, I actually always wanted to be a chef for years growing up. Did a lot of cooking in the family, and somehow, I'm not sure at what point, I ended up the other side of the pass. I think someone actually told me, it's like, you're much better suited to talking to people rather than in the back.
Rather than a room full of people with knives.
Yeah, exactly. And funnily enough,
so I like Firehouse.
Yeah. Funnily enough, I ended up, my wife's actually a chef, so we got the balance right there. I grew up out in the Yarra Valley, so my first jobs were in wineries and breweries and that sort of thing, before heading overseas and working in fine dining and hotels before coming back.
Did you ever hang out with Cam in the Yarra Valley when you were kids?
No.
And Cameron, so you're with McConnell's Restaurants now. Did you just want to give us a little bit of a background to what's brought you into to those restaurants?
Funnily enough, somewhat similar to Michael in that I always loved food. I think the first thing I fell in love with was the product. And I was obsessed with cooking, watching cooking videos and learning everything about food. And at some point entered into the industry, but in a more front of house capacity. Since then have travelled and worked in London and in a host of pretty good restaurants. And now
I think you need to do a little bit better than that. Some outstanding restaurants.
And worked with really good chefs and really good places, and lucky enough to continue doing that now in Melbourne as well.
In some equally outstanding restaurants.
Exactly.
Well, let's just focus on, now that we know what's brought you to hospitality, let's talk about now. I've been really amazed at, in the current environments, how hospitality places have reimagined and reinvented themselves and become very resourceful. I'd just like for you to comment on what you've felt has been the main changes and what businesses have done to reinvent themselves. Start with you.
Want me to kick off?
Yeah.
I think, the word of the moment, certainly pivot, and pivot we did. Pirouette.
I don't know whether you're allowed to use that word anymore. It's been used so much.
I know, it kills me every time. I was like, come on, different word. But as the restrictions came into place, the industry scrambled to come up with solutions to keep their teams employed and keep revenue flowing in some capacity. some of those things worked, some didn't. And now we're seeing slowly coming out the other side what those revenue streams look like going forward, and if they do stay. And even in my own venues, looking at the things that really did work, how can we keep them going in some way, so it's an extra revenue arm going forward. Things like take-home meals and general takeaway, online ordering, that sort of thing. That's always good to have, or you always want to develop things like that, but being in hospitality, it's always the time factor. But when you're forced into a corner and you've got no other option, you're obviously going to build out whatever you need in that current situation. So now those things are built out, not only my own venues, but in others around the world, really. People are looking at how can you keep them going in some capacity.
I just wanted to touch on that point that you said about keeping your staff engaged and employed and up and running. It brings to my mind the notion of mental health and how we in hospitality have been really great at caring for others, caring for our customers. But what do you think are the ways that you best care for your staff, given the situation that they have been through recently, but just more generally?
I mean, at a general level, looking back about 6 months, 12 months, 18 months ago, we really started to make that a big focus of our business and how we do look after our employees. We've got approximately 400 people that we employ and look after. So that covers everything from teaching meditation, having yoga classes available to people, putting hard limits on people's working hours so everyone gets enough rest, enough time with their families and loved ones. All of those really positive initiatives. And then throughout what has been a pretty challenging time with the hospitality industry in general, communication has been a big part of it. So just trying to keep staff up to date on where they stand, what the business's plans are, and how soon and how quickly and in what capacity we can start to bring people back into the business.
And Andy, we joked at the beginning when you were saying going from the kitchen to the other side of the pass and all the pressures of being in the kitchen. I'm wondering in what ways you and your team consider staff mental well-being and just...
I'm really lucky to work for a very forward-thinking brand. We have community responsibility is high on our list of priorities as a company because we produce whiskey for a global market, and I'm a very small part of that. But the company ethos was started when sort of Dave got us started. It was very much around that, making people feel included, making people feel like part of the whole process of the brand, whether you worked in marketing, whether you worked in production, or whether you worked down in the bar. It didn't matter where you worked, you were all part of that success story. So we brought people along for a journey from the beginning. Most of my team have been with me for sort of 2.5 years. They don't particularly want to go anywhere else. They really enjoy it because we do focus upon our team. And reflecting on what Cameron was saying, there's we do have similar initiatives in place, but there is a genuine care. And I think that given the industry that we're in, we care for our staff, we care for our patrons, and so we need to care for our staff so they can care for those patrons. So I think hospitality has always been a very comfortable and enjoyable industry to be in because you have to care for your people. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Because if you don't, that reflects on you. So yeah, and I think I'm lucky enough to work in a company that's beyond hospitality but still has that feeling of care. So I think that it will just continue to exist. And
cycling back to the point that you're making about more takeaway and deliveries and those kinds of things, that customer interface has changed significantly. So I'm wondering, and then coming back to what you were saying about the customer care, what changes are we making as far as delivering a fabulous experience to your guests, given that you haven't got the same face-to-face? And we'll start with you, Michael.
I think it's really difficult because, as I said, we all scrambled really quickly just to set up new revenue streams and takeaway and all the rest. And in that scrambling, I think a lot of us forgot about that piece of customer experience and brand experience. It's like, how's my brand being perceived at the other end when you don't have a waiter standing there or a bartender or whoever else? And now you're seeing, throughout that time, as people settled into doing that takeaway, just improving it as you went, and we did the same thing, and looking at how your brand is represented in the home. And it's really difficult, to be honest. Like, on the most part, a lot of the sustainability angle that we all worked so hard on for years just went out the window within
packaging.
Yeah, within a split second. It was amazing, and I 100% understand that we all did scramble to make that happen because we needed to. But now it's looking at, okay, we've gone through that. Let's learn from it and start to understand from a sustainability angle, how can we start implementing things like that back into delivery and takeaway and that sort of thing, but also how that brand's represented in the home.
And how about for you, Cameron, with the restaurants? Sorry to cut you off there, but with the restaurants, have you had many differences and changes that you're doing with your customer interface and customer service experiences?
With the restaurants now, we're starting to see some changes as they reopen. Obviously, as Michael touched on, there's a host of things that we dabbled in during that kind of forced closure, from vegetable boxes to finish at home meals, lots of takeaway, everything we could get our hands on. Now, as we reopen, it kind of really makes you analyse and look at the business model, what's sustainable, what has been working, what can we just disregard entirely, and what new opportunities are out there. And that might include things like technology and kind of trying to make the businesses more efficient to be long-lasting and future-proof.
And I think we'll head towards a bit of a wrap here, and I'll work backwards so that you can have the last say. Cameron, what words of wisdom would you like to give our listeners who think they might like to be just like you?
Well, my method has always been to try to figure out an area of specialty, be that coffee or events or hotels or cooking, whatever it may be, and try to work with the best people you can, understanding and hoping that they're going to be the ones that can teach you the most and put you amongst the best product and the best guests and give you the best platform to learn what you need to.
Fabulous. And Michael, hopefully Cameron didn't steal your answer,
Absolutely.
but do you have what words of wisdom?
Mine's similar, and I was really lucky that I had it pounded into me very early in my career about learning from great people and somewhat making sacrifice on other things in life if you want to learn something and be great at it. That sacrifice has to happen early, a lot of the time, to then build yourself up through your career. And yeah, for me, I think a lot of people want the quick fix, the quick learning, the quick tick of approval. Doesn't happen. You certainly do have to earn your stripes. I'm not saying you should kill yourself working, but there's things you can do to get in front of the right people to learn from the best, so to say.
And sacrifice doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing either.
No, not at all.
Not
Not at all, because it can certainly be positive later on in life when you've done the things you've done to learn from people.
And how about for you, Andy? What are your pearls of wisdom?
Enjoy it. You're going to spend so much time doing this, and you're going to love every minute of it if you enjoy it. And if you don't, it'll be a hardship. So, like Cameron said, you have to try everything and find the best people and be surrounded by the best people. Like Michael said, you're going to have to make sacrifices, but you're going to do that because you're going to take home this amazing sense of job well done. Because you put a smile on somebody's face. You might put, I don't know, $30,000 in the till. There's all those different angles for what you see as success. So because you're going to work so hard to achieve that, you have to enjoy it. Otherwise, the end product won't be great.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think on the sacrifice piece I was talking about, when in my early stages of career, I'm sure you guys had the same thing. I had friends saying, "What are you doing? Why are you working so much? Why aren't you coming out on Saturday night?" Why? It's like, guys, this is like going to be my life, and I love every second of it. And looking at that, and they're like, "Why do you work 60 hours a week?" It's like I absolutely love it. And you speak to them about their positions in those early days. It's like, "Do you love going to work?" It's like, "No, I dread on a Sunday night getting ready for my Monday." And it's like, I'm amped for my Monday, or like my shift. Exactly. But I can't wait to go to work because I love what I do, and it's like that's I guess the gift of what we do when you're entrenched in the industry, definitely.
Yeah, fabulous. Andy, thank you very much, and to you also, Michael and Cameron. Thank you for spending a few minutes with us and sharing all of your wisdom. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you.